Yo, what is good everyone? So this weekend, Anime Last Stand dropped a quality of life update with a bunch of Godly reworks. So without further ado, make sure to like, subscribe, let's get straight into seeing what these new Godlies can do. So there isn't much to showcase, but let's go with the update log real quick. There's a Godly rework, so all Godly units reworked, new passives, abilities, team buffs. There's two new units, Hermit Spread, which is from tournament, and then Homeru, which is from tournament previous season. Some new infinite rewards, wave rewards have been added to infinite mode, added pulls, rerolls, perfect and regular stack cubes, and XP items. Okay, so now Anime Last Stand changed how codes work. Actually, now you have to be in their group to redeem codes, which is a bit of a bummer, but it's fine. You should already be in the group anyways, because it gives you extra 100 starting cash in the beginning of the game, and then there's all the codes done. Now let's take a look at the Godlies. Now they all got new team buffs, they all got new abilities, they all got new passives and everything like that. So let's start from the bottom. Okay, let's go Sunjin Wu first. Sunjin Wu plus 15% damage buff to all summons, spawns and clones. This actually is different than what he used to have, and obviously they buff the damage of all the units and everything as well. Then Sukuna, reduce ability cooldown by 20%. So this is actually a big nerf. Sukuna doesn't give 35% range anymore, which was actually really meta for like macros and stuff. Then Ichigo cancels elemental disadvantage, so he doesn't make your units do more damage, he just cancels the disadvantage that you get on your units. Then Luffy automatically permanently slow any enemy that enters the map by 50% and cause them to permanently take 5% more damage. Now this is actually the same thing that was always here. Luffy didn't change his team buff. Then we've got Wukong plus 100% team ability damage, so like your nukes and stuff, they do more damage. Then we have Goku plus 30% team damage to bosses, so that is one of the best ones so far probably. And Escanor plus 30% damage to all flames type damage over time. Now this is a huge nerf to Escanor. He used to give like 25% damage to the entire team, or 20%. So the fact that this is only 30% damage to all flames type DFT is actually a big bummer. Escanor got way nerfed. Then you got Dio plus 30% duration to debuffing status effects, so it makes the debuffing status effects longer pretty much. And then Goro, every first attack increase crit damage and crit chance of all units in range by 50% for 15 seconds. Now this is also a big nerf to Goro, because if you don't know, Goro's original passive was he takes damage from the units in his range and adds it to himself. He no longer does that anymore. That is a big nerf to Goro as well. So let's equip Idol and let's equip Businessman Yojin. We need to showcase what these Godlies' new damage and passives are. Let's start with Goro and let's start with Sukuna. So in the Infinite, they added this new start feature, and you can also change the units before the mode starts now, which is actually pretty dope. Now I'm pretty sure there is a new setting they added here, auto ready, so automatically ready up and start the game pretty much. I'm gonna turn that on definitely for my macros. And now we have a show max range. Obviously there's no new setting besides that, so let's go and see what these two Godlies can do now. So if we look at Goro here, 2.5k to place, I'm pretty sure it's the same price as he always was. So if we place Goro down, he's got a pretty small range. I think it's way smaller than it used to be. One placement is doing 1.3 million. Now obviously he's level 1, so he's not going to be doing the most damage, but his upgrades look pretty cheap. Looks like he has the same mode swap ability. We can use Cosmic, which is the best one. He has the same passives, looks like. We can go and upgrade him some more. His damage looks about the same, his range is about the same, so I don't think they would have changed Goro too much since he is the newest and brand new Godly, so they thought they would have changed too much about him. So then give him another upgrade, and then he has one more upgrade for 400k. I'm not sure if this is cheaper than what he used to be. It might be though, and he does end on the cone AoE like he used to before the update. And then obviously he's 90 million damage with the Galactic Destroyer, so pretty same nuke, same everything like that. So Goro looks about the same, except he doesn't have the take damage from enemies around him anymore, but other than that he looks pretty much the same. Now we can't sell Goro unfortunately, so we just have to showcase Sukuna close here. So for Sukuna, his range on placement is tiny, bro. Look at this, holy crap, he barely covers anything. Let's go and place him here. Now Sukuna is full AoE on placement with a tiny range, holy crap. He's doing basically 5 million damage on placement, and he has two passives. The strongest, which is if strongest sorcerer until in range, increase that unit damage by 25% and drain for 20%. This unit SPA increased by 5%. So obviously a team up with like Gojo. In Divine Flames, every 100 seconds unleash Divine Flames to all enemies in range, dealing 50x this unit's current damage, then applying Sunburn off that multiplier. So that is pretty big, I won't lie. Every 100 seconds, that is pretty big. So I can give him some upgrades. So damage looks pretty good, and he's not the cheapest unit, but he loses his full AoE, and he still has the plasma effect, which is the DOT. Then he still gets cleave split, which goes to a small cone AoE. Then he's still doing quite a decent amount of damage. He has dismantled, obviously, which is done the 200 million damage additionally. Then ultimate cleave, which is a big line AoE, half his range. Obviously, he still has Divine Flame as the strongest, nothing new about that. Then 250k, and he gets a new ability called Power Vows. Upon activation, it has a 50% chance to move on to the next chant. If it doesn't move on to the next chant, ability goes on 300-second cooldown and set to chant 1. If it reaches the final vow, the cooldown of the ability is set to 2000 seconds and set to chant 1. Chant 1 to deal 25 billion damage to all enemies on map. Chant 2 deal 50 billion damage to enemies on map. Chant 3 deal 100 billion damage, 10% HP from all enemies on map. Chant 4 deal 500 billion damage, inflict daze, steal 20% of HP, inflict weaken permanently, and slow enemies down by 50% for 35 seconds, all in range. So it's basically like a luck to which one you get. You either get chant 1, chant 2, chant 3, or chant 4. Basically comes down to RNG pretty much. His last upgrade is 850k. I can't remember if they changed this before or after the update, but it used to be somewhere like 1 million, 1.5 million, somewhere around there. So you get last upgrade. Obviously, gets Malevolent Shrine again, but they actually changed Malevolent Shrine now. Sacrifice 50% of this unit's damage and deal 500 billion damage over 10 ticks. So it's a crazy nuke now. Getting to wave 100 on Hyper Infinite will be a breeze now. Each tick reduces all units in range damage by 2%. Once ability ends, damage for units and this unit recovered after 60 seconds. But two big nukes for Sukuna now, and he has 132 million damage with 300 million DOT. So he's doing around 430 million damage. So Sukuna is actually crazy now. Obviously, he has Power Vows and Malevolent Shrine, then the strongest and Divine Flame. So he still has all these passives, nothing new. And he is more expensive than Garo. So yeah, Sukuna got a crazy nuke, 500 billion damage nuke, which is actually crazy. So the next card is up will be Ichigo, and let's do Wukong. So let's check out Ichigo first. Well, they did actually nerf him, make him cost 1k to place now. But if you have Idol with Entrepreneur trait and the efficiency enchant, you can still place Ichigo as a starter unit because you end up with 1,000 and 100 cash, something like that. But Ichigo still has big range on placement, biggest that we've seen so far. And I'm pretty sure he used to be a line on placement, but now he's a cone. He does still have his 2.5 million damage on placement plus the Hex DOT. He has some new passives here that got Sogu Punisher. Every 5th attack, Ichigo has 35% chance to follow up, doing 50% more damage of the previous attack casted. Quincy Bloodline. If Quincy King Awaken is in range, guarantee follow-up attack, and every 15 attacks, Ichigo increases damage by 10% and inflicts Bolt on next attack. So it's a team up with Ewatch. Then Final Battle. If Aizen Muken is in range, buff own damage by 10% and range by 10%. Buff Aizen damage by 20% and range by 15%. Okay, so cheap to upgrade in the beginning. Damage goes up very, very fast, obviously with DOT as well. Then upgrade 4, his damage goes crazy. And he gets Crescent Moon Dash, only 16.5k. He's doing 90 million damage with 46 million DOT. Then 30.5k, doing 170 million, big jump as well, and 85 million DOT. Still doing Hex, which applies 50% of this unit damage over 6 seconds. Another upgrade, 185 million. Upgrade 7 is doing 208 million damage plus 104 million DOT. And he's 100k, so he is pretty cheap still. Then another big damage jump to 300 million for 180k. Final Getsuga Tensho, upgrade 9. In upgrade 10, he goes to 350 million damage, 350 million damage, and 175 million DOT. It's actually crazy. This guy's doing so much damage. And he still has his normal passives, everything like that. And his last upgrade is only 500k, so he's one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest Godlies in the entire game. He's doing 400 million damage with 200 million DT, so like 600 million damage total. Then obviously on max upgrades gets a ability called True Kai Release. Ichigo activates his True Kai, buffing his damage by 25% and reducing SPA by 25% for 150 seconds, so 2.5 minutes. In addition, gains a temporary 15% chance to deal 2 times damage on attacks for the 150 seconds. So there's a 15% chance he does double damage. So from 600 million with the DOT to 1.2 billion is actually crazy. So Ichigo is probably one of the best Godlies. Crazy. There he is. We're going to move on to Wukong Godly. 2k to place. He's still pretty cheap to place and he has a decent range on placement with a big circle. 2.8 million damage on placement with his crippled effect. So he makes enemies take 15% more damage and reduces movement speed by 20%. Only 10 upgrades, which is a few less than the rest of the Godlies. Cheap in the beginning like always. He has 2 passives. The Monkey Sage. Every 25 attacks by this unit, a perfect copy of the unit is summoned and helps the unit impale, dealing 12.5% of the unit's current damage as its damage and applies plasma status effect to enemies. So obviously this is the same as what it used to be. 5 clones. For every enemy killed this way, unit gains plus 2% range. And the Monkey Sage Extreme. Every time an enemy inflicted by plasma applied by Mori's clones are defeated, increase the clone damage by 2% up to 20% and Mori damage by 1% up to 10%. And when the unit reaches the total cap of plus 10% damage, further increase the damage of all allied units in range by 5%. So a lot of yapping and a lot of damage buffing. Wukong's pretty good. Obviously his damage also goes up quite fast. Then he gets full AoE on upgrade 3 with nature, and he's also doing bleed, which is 140% of this unit's damage over 6 seconds and takes 5% more striking damage. Reduces regen by 50%, which is crazy, but it's not as good as hemorrhage. Hemorrhage is like 90% or something. So pretty good damage with full AoE. Pretty cheap in the beginning as well. No new abilities so far or any passives. He's still doing bleed, which is pretty good. And upgrade 8 gets Kento on maximum and goes to 84 million damage and a big circle AoE with pretty big range. Now he does bolt, which is 120% of the unit damage over 5 seconds. And if a unit with bolt hits an enemy which is under the bolt effect, instantly deal all bolt damage and deal plus 50% bonus damage. So bolt is pretty good. And 300k, and his last upgrade is 500k. He's doing 95 million damage plus 140 million damage from bolt, and he is a nature unit. So obviously Wukong's probably one of the worst Godlies we've seen so far after the patch, but we have to account for all these clones. You can have 5 clones and in total ends up being like 75% of his total damage. So Wukong, he's alright. Let's move on to the next 2 Godlies. So let's see what Sun Jin Woo can do. Let's place him. He got a pretty big range on placement and see new passive. Let's check it out real quick. Obviously, the first one is Shadow Preservation. Every 50 takedowns, Sunwoo increases the damage of all his shadows by 5%, up to 25%. And then Dragon's Fear. Every 100 seconds, Sunwoo deals a 50% chance to roar, slowing all enemies in range down by 30%. And enemies under 25% HP permanently take 50% more damage from Sunwoo and his shadows. Roar deals 5 times Sunwoo's current damage to all enemies in range. Shadow Extraction. 50% chance to revive an enemy killed by Sunwoo with 150% of its max HP. Monarch's Present. Any unit that enters Sunwoo's range is permanently slowed by 10% and takes 15% more damage from his shadows. Sunwoo and his shadows deal 1.5x damage to bosses, so Sunwoo is still pretty good on placement. 3 million damage on placement with Hemorrhage, which reduces regen by 75%, and 4 million damage from Hemorrhage, 140% of the unit's current damage over 3 seconds. So once again, cheaper in the beginning. Damage doesn't go up as fast as the rest. Upgrade 4, he gets Shadow Commander, then he still has Hemorrhage, no new passives or anything, still pretty cheap. Upgrade 9, okay, he changes to Mutilate, which is 250% of his unit damage over 8 seconds and takes 10% more damage, reduces enemy regen by 95%. So Mutilate is crazy for regen. Then 75k Monarch's Dash, 100k. Upgrade 11 goes to 117 million plus 292 million DOT. His last upgrade is 350k, probably actually the new cheapest one we've ever seen. 140 million damage plus 350 million DOT, so around 500 million damage total for Sun Jin Woo. Then obviously gets a nuke or ability, Shadow King's Domain. Upon activation, deal 20 billion damage to all enemies in range, self buff damage by 35% and buff all shadows in range by 50% for 200 seconds. Every kill Sunwoo gets while this ability is active, he gains 0.5% more damage cap, with damage cap of 50% permanently. Obviously he's still a big nuke for Sun Jin Woo. Sun Jin Woo didn't get changed that much. They maybe changed his passives a bit and maybe gave him a bit of a damage buff, but that is pretty much it. Then let's sell Sun Jin Woo and let's see Luffy. 2.5k place, decent range on placement. He's doing almost 5 million damage plus crippled. Then cheap in the beginning. Let's see his passives. He has 2 passives. Cartoon Logic. Whenever this unit is going to be stunned, dodge the stun and have Luffy's next attack be a guaranteed crit with plus 700% crit damage. That's crazy. Stunning this guy is basically buffing him. Then Liberating Drums. Every 5 attacks inflict a concrete effect which stuns for 8 seconds instead of 5 seconds. Okay. Then damage goes up not as fast as the rest of the Godlies, but still pretty fast. The thing is, defeat Defeats aura and goes full AoE, 50 million damage, plus Conquered, which affected enemies take 8% more damage and have their movement speed reduced by 100%. 35k, 40k, 45k, pretty cheap, 50k. Then upgrade 10 he gets Komonori for 200k, he goes to 124 million damage, loses the DOT effect unfortunately, still has 2 passives, then 300k, and he gets Exceed Imagination. Upon activation, damage and range is by 15% for the next 120 seconds, and Luffy gains the random effect. So then 500k, and he gets 147 million damage every 3.6 seconds, so he's a pure damage DPS unit. And he gets the ultimate gun, which is 150 billion damage to all enemies, and all enemies hit receive 50% increased critical damage for 100 seconds, so it's 150 billion damage new. It's probably Exceed Imagination, because he gets a random effect. This unit's attacks apply random to all enemies hits, which has no description, so it could be random what he gets applied with. So Luffy is pretty strong even after the buff and changes to him. Let's check out the next 2 Godlies. First up we have Goku. Let's place him down. He's a pretty small-ish range on placement, 2 million damage on placement. He's water element like always. He has 2 passives. Protector of the universe. When this unit or unit in range have status effect applied to them, have Goku counter attack for 50% of his current attack damage and 30-second cooldown. And then also have adaptation. Every 50 takedowns, Goku has 20% chance to adapt to the enemies. These adaptations include plus 20% damage, plus 50% crit chance, plus 20% more boss damage, and plus 20% range. Goku obtains these adaptations once, and in this order. Okay, so pretty good passives. 25 million damage on placement, pretty cheap in the beginning like always. His damage actually doesn't go up that fast compared to the other units, and he has no DOT as well. Then upgrade 4 Ultimate Spiritual Bomb, pretty cheap upgrades. Upgrade 7 Supreme Kamehameha, also not insane damage yet. Upgrade 10 he goes to 107 million damage and he gets Honed Body. All enemies on the map take 30% more damage until death. 140k, and then 483k, and now he goes to 192 million damage. And his last upgrade is 800,000. He goes to 288 million damage. So he's a pure DPS, no DOT, and he has the ability Final Energy Bomb. Upon activation, deal 20 billion damage times the current charge count, which is a cap of 400 billion, and buff units damage in range by 5% times charge count for 150 seconds, cap of 100%. So how do you see his charge count? I'm not sure where the charge count is. What's his charge count? I'm not sure what that means. But yeah, he has nuke, and then he has 30% more damage until death, and he's a pure DPS unit, so Goku is alright. Now let's check out Escanor, the first Guardian ever in ALS. Place him down, small-ish range on placement, highest damage on placement so far, 12.7 million with 2 DOTs or 2 effects. He has Hex, which enemies receiving 50% of this unit's damage over 6 seconds, and then Sunburn, 175% of the unit's damage over 4 seconds, and have their movement speed reduced by 17%. Cheap in the beginning, damage goes up decently fast, gets Prideful Wrath on upgrade 3. Upgrade 7 he gets Solar Crash, and it goes to 114 million damage, full AoE, 200 million DOT, so 314 million basically on upgrade 7, then 125k, 200k, 400k, then his final upgrade 600k, and he gets a new ability called the One Ultimate, and he's doing 165 million damage, full AoE, plus 289 million DOT damage, so around 400 to 500 million damage for Escanor, plus the Hex effect, which receives 50% of his unit's damage over 6 seconds, and he gets the ability called the One Ultimate. Increased damage by 50%, decrease SPA by 25%, increased range by 50%, increased DOT damage by 40% for 60 seconds. During the 60 seconds, gain Blaze Effect. After 60 seconds ends, this unit cannot attack for the next 120 seconds. So let's pop that real quick. So Blaze Effect is afflicted enemies receive 150% of this unit's damage over 7 seconds. So another DOT, so now we have 3 DOTs plus 250 million damage. So Escanor is also like a high damage, high DPS unit. So Escanor and Goku are pretty good. So the last card we have to showcase is Dio, and it only costs 850 to place. If I remember correctly, he used to be expensive, like 5k or 10k to place, but now only 850. So they gave Dio a pretty big buff, but range on placement is pretty small, and he has low damage on placement. He does have Accelerate, which is decreased DOT proc time by 10% for 10 seconds. So I don't know if that's the best, but yeah, cheap to place, not the best damage on placement though. Cheap in the beginning like always, damage doesn't go up that fast. Upgrade 4 Heavenly Barrage. Let's see what his passives are. He has 2 passives. First one, Divine Aura. Every 10 attacks increases unit's SPA by 25%, and all units within 50% of the unit range have the SPA decreased by 5% for seconds. And then Heavenly Vampire. Units in Dio's range have the SPA decreased by 2% to 10%, depending on how close they are from the unit. Similarly, enemies in this unit range receive an increased 2% to 10% slow depending on how close they are to the unit. So pretty basic buffs, still pretty cheap upgrades. Upgrade 8 Divine Flurry, now he has good damage, 150 million every 7.5 seconds. Upgrade 8, he still has Accelerate, 155k. Upgrade 11 Reality Override, 200 million damage. Now we're doing some real damage. Then he has ability Road Roller, heal 5 times this unit's current damage and time stop all enemies in range for 8 seconds with 35-second cooldown, so like a billion damage pretty much. Not the best nuke, but it's something. That's pretty much just a time stop basically. In 400k, his final upgrade, 600k, is Pillar of Heaven, and now he's full AoE with a big range, doing 300 million damage every 10 seconds. So not the best total DPA, but Dio is pretty good. He's one of the best light units probably. He does get Over Heaven special, which is time stop all enemies on map for 60 seconds. Enemies killed during this time stop are brought back to life with 100% of their max HP. So it basically summons again, and plus Road Roller. He has no new passives, just those 2 abilities, and then yeah, so Dio he's alright. Probably one of the worst Godlies though. There's all the new Godly reworks showcased. Now, in my opinion, Sukuna is the best Godly of the rework. 500 billion damage nuke, absolutely insane. Then we got Sunjin Woo. Each goes crazy now. So yeah, the Godly rework, it's a bit iffy. I was expecting some even crazier damage numbers from these guys, but I guess not. Obviously, my expectations were a bit too high, but yeah, the Godlies, I think all of them are better than what they were before the buff. But I was expecting something way bigger. But those are all the new Godlies showcased. There's nothing else in this update to do, so I'm going to work on another video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.